All right, everyone. I'm so excited for my guest. Welcome, Grace, to the show. I'm so happy to have you.
Oh, thank you for having me, Janae. I love the title of your podcast,
Thank
My
you.
Naked Mindset.
Thank you. I know I loved your questions about it too. You're like, ooh, what's naked to you? Love that. I love when people ask questions. It's so much fun. But
Oh,
I would love to open up with what are you most excited about that's coming up in your life? It can be anything.
what am I most excited about? There's so many things that I'm excited about coming up. My son recently got married, and
Oh,
you know, looks like in the future, I don't know yet when, but I might end up being a grandmother, so that's exciting.
that
And I'm
is.
really exciting. I have a speaking engagement coming up in Arizona in a few weeks. So I've also started doing professional speaking engagements over the last year. So that's been exciting,
That's amazing.
right? It's been amazing. And we were just talking about this, but my husband and I just celebrated our 27th wedding anniversary, which is exciting because we almost didn't make it. So we were just talking about that. So that's exciting.
Congrats. That's amazing.
It's a
That is
miracle, honestly.
that's an accomplishment. Like
It
people
really.
need to celebrate this stuff more. That's what I think. You
Yeah,
know?
and we actually like each other.
Uh, Even better, right? That's amazing.
It's amazing. And like I mentioned to you earlier, it wasn't easy. And that's why it's,
Right.
something exciting because I'm like, okay, we made it. And we always were friends. But you
Okay.
have these challenges where you're not sure if you're going to make it. And so that's exciting for us that we're
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's kind of start from the beginning. How did you guys meet? And
Mm,
yeah, tell me the beginning. I always like to hear how
like
people
those
meet.
stories.
Yeah.
So actually, he asked me to marry him before we even really got naked, kissed, anything.
He's like, I knew you were the one.
Um,
I love that.
so I was working in my brother's coffee shop and he just came in one day and he never left. And one of my girlfriends had come in and said, there's a guy across the street. I think, he's the one for you. And then she had gone up to him and she said, there's a girl across the street. I think she's the one for you. And so he ended up coming in and he never left. And so that was, 29 years ago.
Oh my God, that is so cute. What a
It's
cool story.
Yeah, it is a cool story. And he did. He asked me to marry him. We were just friends and hanging out, and we were all hanging out in my like tiny studio apartment one night. There's about 10 of us, crammed in that little tiny place. And he turns to me and says, in 6 months, if you don't like anyone else, do you want to get married? And I looked at him and I was like, F you. F you.
That's so funny. You're like, we'll see. But no,
Yeah,
that's wild. Okay.
yeah, it's
So you
wild.
guys were you guys friends kind of
We were
before you got
friends.
in a relationship?
Yes, so
Yeah.
we were friends. And I really believe that's what helped us navigate, almost 30 years together because we were always friends. There was always that type of
Mm,
respect and the friendship always came first. I believe if we weren't friends, we wouldn't have made it as far because we've been through a lot of challenges. And my husband is a recovered alcoholic
okay.
and he got sober 2.5 years ago, which has
Wow.
been just a blessing and a miracle.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And had we not been friends and have that like mutual respect for each other, we would never.
Mm. Interesting. Oh, I like that. I like that way of like wording it and using that as an example because it's true. Like your partner, I think, should be your friend, your confidant, that person that you can rely on
Yes.
through everything in life, right? So I think that is so important. I like
Yeah,
that a lot.
it wasn't easy. There have been nights
Yeah,
I have been on the floor like not pounding my head, but like, oh my God, what do
right.
I do? How do I, because also if anyone who's listening has been in a relationship with someone who has an addiction, they're not available,
Right.
you know,
Totally.
and so that was really challenging. However, what ended up coming of it was I had to work on myself first. So I started doing
Mm,
that work on myself so I wouldn't lose myself. And that kind of got us to the point where, 2.5 years ago, after I had a total thyroidectomy, I'm like, okay, like I am done with all of this. I gotta leave the situation and end
Mm,
up stepping up and going into the rooms, into the, AA program. And it's been
yeah.
wonderful for us.
That's so powerful. And I can relate to a lot of what you're saying because my dad is an alcoholic. So my mother was probably in a lot of the same shoes that you were. So I can completely relate to that. It's very hard. And especially if you're not an addict yourself, it's so hard to like put yourself in their shoes and kind of understand all the ins and outs of being with an addict. That's really, really challenging.
It is challenging, and you're right. Unless you're in the situation, it may be hard to understand because,
Right.
well, why didn't you leave?
Right.
Well, I made an, I tried several times to ask him to leave.
Mm.
I think what made it challenging was because we were friends and there was a level of respect and love. And, so had he been, abusive, well, he was abusive and like neglectful, that, you could call that abuse.
Right.
He was neglectful financially, you can call that abuse.
Mm-hmm.
However, coming from a family of origin where I experienced domestic, abuse and domestic violence, like to me, this wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that you can really never say, why don't you do this? Unless you put yourself in that person's shoes and you know their map of reality, you can't judge another person and
Mm-hmm.
where they're at. You
That's
can,
so true.
have empathy and compassion. Everybody
Yeah.
take their step at their when they're ready.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because I think that a lot of people do like judge or like maybe they heard your story and they're like, well, Grace, like, what the heck? Like, why don't you leave? So if someone is in a similar situation as you and they're kind of looking, a friend, their friend is going through something similar and they're kind of looking at it from like a bird's eye view and just feeling like, what are you doing? Like, what would you suggest that person doing or saying to try to support that couple instead?
That's a great question because I have been in that situation where I have had friends in those types of relationships, and I'm learning that each relationship is different
Mm,
and different nuances. And it's very easy to say, leave. One thing that I would definitely highly recommend is to confide in a family member or go to someone that you feel safe with. I didn't
yes.
have, my parents around. So maybe if you have parents or a sister or someone to go to and explain the situation to get that support so that
Mm,
you feel supported enough to make that next step
I love that. Yeah,
out
that is
or
so,
whatever it is.
yeah, that's so important to have that one person you can go to that's not going to judge. They're going to be there for you no matter what. And I think too, like you said, like a family member, a best friend, or even like a therapist can be a really great person to just kind of unload and know that they're not going to judge you because that's the hardest part is when you're sharing something so intimate with whomever it is. You want to feel safe, you want to feel like, okay, this person's not just going to shut me out or like completely leave me alone or just like not be there for me. You want to feel that support and that comfort that they're just going to be like, okay, we got this together, like I'm here for you. That's so important.
It is important. And I have, great friends and I appreciate my friends. However, when I went to them, they couldn't believe it. They're like, "Are you sure? We're
Mm,
all partying, we're all drinking." And they didn't, I mean, eventually they were like, "Whatever you need to do." But I
right.
feel like they had cognitive dissonance to begin with.
Mm, right. That's tough.
And I had to understand like not to take that personal and to understand like they're coming from their own perspective and you know obviously I don't want to say hold space for their perspective because I needed them to support me, but I understood like, okay, this is their perspective. They're
Mm,
not in the house with me, they don't see what I've been going through. But I also let them know, if you have been listening to me and hearing me the last several years, you wouldn't be surprised.
mm, yeah, that's important. And I think too, like like you said, some people don't even realize what people are going through because yeah, like they're like, well, are you sure? Like we're all doing the same thing, or oh, I've never seen it. But it's like
Right.
I think a lot of people, even like online, like, oh, well, you post photos together, you seem so happy, but it's like that is just, like that's just a photo. Like that's not like what's happening behind closed doors, as they say.
Right.
And I think,
And, and you have
yeah,
a right to, because we were still a family and we still had kids and
right,
fun
right,
times and we were still doing fun things.
totally.
I think for us, that's what made it, made me like able to, be there for so long is because we did have these fun times and these fun moments. It was just, when that door closed, it wasn't that I was getting, abused or beat. It was he was just not available. And for someone who does the work and who's so connected, like I cannot be with someone who's not available.
Mm. Now, how did so you said like you kind of worked on yourself and you kind of filled up your cup. So I would love to kind of hear a little bit more about like maybe some tips or things that helped you along the way to kind of build yourself up.
Great question. Well, I did have therapists and coaches throughout. I had a therapist for 25 years and then I had coaches. So I've had coaches and therapists through the last 30 years. So number one is I had support from a professional. And number two, one of my coach's recommendations was, just surrender. And it's not about him. Go do you and live your life. Do what you want to do. And so I had my business and I started traveling to different, self-development conferences and I got my coaching certification. I opened a coaching side of the business. So instead of focusing on, you know, what was lacking in the relationship or his irresponsibility, or I didn't even realize he was an alcoholic really until later. Um, so one, I had someone I was working with at all times, and two, I focused on bettering myself and being there for myself, my business, my children, and that was really helpful because I didn't lose myself.
Mm. That is that's so important. And I think I would say that that's challenging to do, especially, when your partner is going through something that you kind of have no control over. And I don't know if you familiar with Mel Robbins?
Of course.
Okay, I figured, but I'm like, I know she's gotten really popular lately. So her let them theory, I was actually reading her book, I want to say 2 months ago at this point, and there was a part of her book that really resonated with me. And it talks about if you want someone else to do something, you want to motivate them, you want them to get off the couch and go to the gym, you want them to quit smoking cigarettes, stop drinking alcohol, whatever it may be. She says in that book to be an example. So if
Mhm.
you want your partner to start going to the gym, you start going to the gym. And they will see your habits forming and they will see this repetitive pattern that's good, and hopefully that may encourage them to go to the gym, for example. But you cannot force someone to do whatever the case may be, quit drinking, stop smoking cigarettes, whatever the case may be. And that really resonated with me because if you want something, you have to do it. You cannot have someone else do it for you or tell you, because it doesn't stick most of the time. Like if someone wants to do something, they get to do it for themselves.
Right. That's right. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to learn that I couldn't control the outcomes because I grew up
Right.
as the oldest of five children. And my mom would always tell me, you have to make sure your brother does this or your sister does this. And so I thought that was my responsibility. However, you're banging your head against a brick wall if you're trying to control other people. And so I'm grateful that I learned the hard way, but I, learned it many years ago that I cannot control anyone else, period.
Mm,
Not my sons, not my husband.
yeah.
I can only control myself. And so that's why
Yes.
you asked me, like, how did I do it? I just focused on controlling what I could. And I put all the attention on my children and, bettering myself. But yeah, I love Mel Robbins. And I have a saying in Arabic, that was similar. Like, and my friends make fun of me all the time. And it's just basically, same thing, like let them.
it. It's so powerful. Yeah. And I love that you said like you had so much support, you were kind of filling up your cup, doing what you can control. I really think that's so amazing that you knew what you had to do, right? And you did it. You hustled and you filled up your cup. And I like that you said like you instead of focusing on the bad things, like you focus on what you could control, and that was yourself and kind of what you were doing. So if someone is
Well,
listening, sorry.
disclaimer, disclaimer. Yes, that was I started focusing on myself 10 years ago. Prior
Okay.
to
Yeah.
that, I got lost in the people pleasing, the enabling, the codependent.
Okay.
And so then once,
Mm.
I had the awakening and the awareness of, okay, I can't control anyone. I'm people pleasing, I'm enabling. So then I started doing the work to get healthy,
Mm.
and that was a game changer for me.
I love that because people pleasing, that is such a relatable feeling. And I think so many people are unaware that they're even doing it, right? They're the behaviors and it gets really, really hard. I call myself a recovering people pleaser because I have actively tried to not always say yes and say no more often and setting boundaries. I think it's so, so important. So if someone's listening to this and like always wants to control and is people pleasing and all these behaviors, what is something maybe that you've tried in the past or maybe like a daily habit that you try to actively do to try to not people please, set boundaries? Is there something that you suggest someone trying?
I mean, that's a loaded question. There's so, there's more than one piece.
Mm,
I believe, the first piece of advice that I would offer and share is surrender to the God of your understanding.
mm,
Just let go, surrender, and say, I don't have control over the situation. I'm open to receive support.
I like that. That's good.
And then
Yeah.
I believe once you know, m make that, or you're admit to that, I believe that the resources, the people, um, will start showing up to help you get to that next step.
Mm, yeah. I love that. That's so important. And I think too, like writing everything down. I think writing in a journal or a diary of some sort can be so impactful because then you can kind of look back and be like, oh my gosh, like look where I was 5 years ago. I was in this negative headspace and I was people pleasing and I was being in a million places at once. And now I set boundaries, healthy boundaries with everyone in my life. And I've moved past having that control because I think that's such a relatable feeling. I think everyone, in some part of their life wants to control something, right? And I like the what you said earlier of like I can really only control what I'm doing, right? And I think that's what Mel says too, is like I can only control what I'm doing, what I'm saying, and how I react, which is great. So if you have that in your head that that's the only things you can control, I can't control what my partner is going to do. I can't control what my boss is saying about me. I can't control what this person thinks about me. It can be a helpful tool to just reframe that mindset.
Absolutely. And, we get to choose how we respond.
Yes.
You know,
That's
that's a choice.
yeah.
And I want to go back to the journaling. I love that you said that because I do a lot of journaling. And sometimes the other day, Mike was
Love.
like, "Do you ever go back and read those?" Because I just have them, tons of them.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to go back and read and see how far you've come. And also, and maybe you can share on your experience, but sometimes when you start journaling, things come out that you didn't even realize were inside you.
Yes. Yes. And I think yeah, sometimes like a brain dump, I call it. Like I'll literally just like if I'm stressed out or I'm going through something, I'll literally just write whatever I'm feeling down. And you're right, like sometimes I'm like, oh wow, I haven't put that on paper. I haven't like put so much thought into that thought or feeling. And I think it can be so impactful. Like I've been doing it for probably 2 years, I actually have a journal that I sell on Amazon,
Yes.
that I created. And it's something that I really try to do every single day. And it's just a check-in. It doesn't have to be a long, like 15 minute. Of course, if you want it to be 15 minutes, go for it. But it's like 5 minutes that you can just get all of your feelings out, doing a
Yeah,
check-in with yourself, right? And I think it can be so therapeutic to do that check-in and figure out what you need in the day, and what's going to fill your cup up that day and what you're desiring to have happen in the day. And of course, if you don't have a good day, it can also be a good little tool to be like, okay, well, what was a little win, right? It can be something so small, but it can make a big impact.
absolutely. And we're constantly manifesting our lives. So if we're constantly manifesting, why not manifest a life that you love?
Yes, love that. I love that. Now, when it comes to like emotional closeness to like your partner, do you have, because obviously you guys have been together for such a long period of time, you and your husband, when life gets busy, right? Is there like something that you guys do, whether that be whatever timing, every couple months, whatever, is there something you guys do to get that connection back, whether it be emotional, physical, date night, anything like that?
Well, I always tell him, I'm like, well, you picked me, so you got stuck because I need to be connected, more often than not.
Uh-huh.
And oh, so what we do is on Sundays, we like to take, a ride into the kind of the woods, and we'll sit outside and have coffee.
Oh.
It's so funny. He loves camping, so he has like this thing we can make coffee, in the woods or go to the beach. We like definitely going to rides on the coast. So it's making quality time for each other, just the two of us, because we are
Mm.
around each other during family times or at family events, but it really needs just the two of you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean the two of you sitting on the couch watching TV. That does not work for me at all.
Yes. Oh,
That's, turning off the TV, like, and coming into the room and watching a movie with your headphones in the bed, doesn't work for me either. It's
yeah.
really being present.
Mm.
And that's what I do. And I have to, that is something that we still struggle with because I have to, ask for that because, he has the ADHD and he's going so fast, like all of us.
Right.
Um, and so I have to say, hey, today's, need to slow down. So you have to make a conscious effort. It's
Yes.
it's not, when you're together for 30 years, it's not typically spontaneous. It's like you have to make the effort.
Yeah. No, I think that's so good and honest. Like creating that quality time. And I think and I find this with a lot of men, honestly, but I find that little reminders too is something that is so important. So is there something that you could tell the ladies that are listening that's like advice of like not getting frustrated, or like a little tip about men particularly that you could share?
Sure. I like to keep it playful
Love
because
that.
there, I believe as a woman, I have the capacity to manage several projects at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Not multitasking, but I can do different things.
Yeah.
I can do this task, then go to the next task. However, I've realized based on my experience, that men are really super focused and they have a hard time thinking about other things. So I want him to, schedule that day or make the effort, but he has his mind on work the entire day. So when he comes home, he's spent.
Mm.
And so then I'm thinking, well, he's not interested. It's really not that he's not interested, is that he is spent. And so for me, what I do is like I keep it playful and fun, and I try not to take things too serious. Um, I'll just, send funny texts throughout the day.
Yeah.
And you have to ask for what you want. And it's not that they don't care.
Yes.
It's not that they don't want. Is they have so much, going on, and they were not. um I don't want to say trained because they're not dogs. Men were not taught how to make space for themselves. They weren't taught how to
Mm,
connect with themselves. They were taught how to be providers and
yeah.
provide for the family. That was their role. And so I think I'm seeing a lot of um, podcasts out there and individuals who are bringing it to the forefront and saying, hey, we need to change the narrative for our sons and for our husbands that it's okay for them to have emotions and feelings.
Yes. It's so important. I'm so glad you brought that up because my husband's friends will often come to him. And I'm not saying it's often by any stretch, but every once in a while, there'll be something that's going on with one of my husband's friends, and they'll come to him and they will express their feelings. And you can tell, or he can tell, like, they don't want to talk about this, but they're like, you know what? I need his input or advice or whatever. And I love that he's the type of person that is receiving this and like they obviously feel comfortable enough. But I always encourage, like, even when I'm hanging out with them and it's just, me, him, and his friends sometimes, because the mom is home with the kids or whatever. I always say, like, share what you are feeling because if you're holding it all in, you're not doing anyone good, right? Like you're not doing yourself good. You're not doing your wife good if you're not expressing how you're feeling. And I just think men need to have these strong relationships and these strong connections with their other male friends more often. Like, because I feel like they just talk about like stupid shit, like, oh, sports and this and that. And it's like, this is why women, I think, have such strong relationships, is because we talk so deeply about so many different things. And most men are not, hanging out, sitting there talking about their feelings or
Okay.
and it's important. I think we should normalize it more and
Yes. And we can give permission. Again, I don't believe that
exactly.
men are wired to be like us and sit
I
around on a
know.
regular basis, which is
Right.
fine.
Right.
But giving permission, like, okay, like you have emotions and you have feelings, and it's okay to express those. It doesn't make you weak. It actually is a sign of courage and
Right.
strength.
I love it. It's
Yeah,
important.
it's very important. And it's been um it's been a miracle, witnessing my husband in the program and how he's changed and how he's making an effort to communicate. It's been a blessing watching my sons, um, because also the alcoholism affected the relationship he had with the boys. There really was no relationship. So it's
Mm.
been really a miracle and a blessing to witness the unfolding of the relationship he has now with himself, with my son, with our sons, and with me. And now they call him the Tony Robbins of AA. So it's been
Oh.
and it's okay. If I share, I'm not I'm breaking anonymity, but so yeah, that's why it's important to, like you said earlier, when you don't share what's within your, heart, then that creates physical illness.
Mm-hmm. It
And we don't want that
does.
for the men in our lives. We want to, give them permission and let them know that we care and we're supportive. And they also need to take accountability as well.
Yes, it's gonna be a good balancing act. But I think it's so I love that you said like giving yourself permission because it's true. It's like and also like I always encourage Tyler, my husband, to share that with his guy friends. Like it is okay to talk about this stuff. It is normal. And then they'll like thank him at the end of the conversation. And it's like, no, this should be a common conversation with us men. Like it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to share them. And I think the more we talk about this type of stuff, it will normalize it and it will continue to get better and better over the years. That's what I'm hopeful for
Yes,
is,
I
you
absolutely
know.
no, I absolutely hold that vision as well, because if we want to admit it or not, we as a society have been through a very challenging path. The last 5 years have been challenging. We're experiencing challenges, now, and
Yeah.
it's really important to, number one, take care of yourself. Like you said earlier, fill your cup, and check on your friends.
Yes. Check in on each other. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, just do a little check-in. I think that's so important. And I think like, yeah, like almost like doing a reflection. Sometimes I'm like, wow, who have I not talked to in a little bit, right? And just think about some of those friends you might have not have talked to for a bit and send them a text, hey, I hope you're doing well. I'm thinking about you. That can change someone's entire day, you
Absolutely.
know? I think it's so
And
important.
something actually I really want to do this. Something my husband does is he'll create a little video and send it to someone like, "Hey, I was
Oh, I
thinking
love
instead of just the voice
that.
note like I do, he'll create a video and send it,
Yeah,
create a couple and send it to his friends." And that's been something I really want to incorporate. I haven't gotten there. I'm great at
that's
sending voice notes, but I haven't done
uh-huh.
the
That's a great idea. I love that. That's really sweet. And do they send one back usually?
No, they don't typically send one back, but they'll respond like, "Hey, that was great,"
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, there's just so many ways that we can stay connected, with the people
Yeah.
that we care about, which I feel in turn connects us to ourselves. As long as like you talked about this earlier, as long as we have that people pleasing, in check.
Yes. So true. Yeah, that's so important. Yeah, that's a really good way to, yeah, connect with each other. And then, yeah, you just instantly feel good about, reaching out and connecting with a friend. Now, I always am fascinated by like misconceptions and things people like misunderstand. So, what do you think couples like most often misunderstand about like long-term marriages or like long-term love?
What people, I think what people misunderstand is after a certain time that you're not interested in sex or intimacy anymore. And
That's a
that's
good
not
one.
true. Like I went to a functional medicine doctor the other day and she goes, "Oh, wow, you're going to be 55 and you're still interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, am I not supposed to be?"
Right. You're like, no,
She goes, "Yeah, most women your age are not interested." I'm like,
really
I don't find that to be
interesting.
true. So I just think it's, I just, I don't know. I'm still exploring that. I've heard
Yeah,
that, you get to a certain age and you're not interested anymore. I just don't find that to be true. And, for us, for me,
that's good. That's a good thing,
yeah,
right?
right. And just also, I think there's a misconception like the longer you're together, then you're like, oh God, you're sick of each other. But I feel like
Mm-hmm.
the longer, we've been together, and especially now because we're doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not perfect, by any
Yeah.
means, but I feel like it gets better.
Yeah. I love that. I love to hear that. And
Yeah.
and so if someone is in like a maybe they're like almost like the roommate phase, I call it. Like they're like, oh, like we're just so in the day-to-day shit and we're like we want to spice it up. We want to try something new. Any tips for the folks out there listening in the
Oh,
bedroom? We're talking about in the bedroom
you know
or
what I
anything, really.
the bedroom? Okay. My friends, if they watch this, they're gonna be like, "That's perfect for her, this podcast." Um, I'm stepping outside my box, in podcasting today, Janae. Thank you.
Love it.
It's usually professional. So, you know what I love? I love the red light. I love just popping in the red light into the lamp. It
Yeah.
creates the mood. I love candles. I know that sounds just, cliche, but it
No.
really does something to set the mood. Like that I can't stand the TV. So turn the television
Yes,
off.
turn that shit off. Yeah.
We don't even have a television in our bed. We've never had a TV in our
Love
bedroom.
that. Love that.
So
That's a good tip.
yeah, that's what I would recommend. And I know like it's exhausting. Like you get tired at the end of the day, and that's the last thing you think about. It's really not
Right.
to, create a life with someone where you're paying bills and the kids and, there's a million things. And typically it's not spontaneous. However,
Right.
you get to create that space and making your, partner feel wanted and desired is really one of the healthiest things that you can do for them.
That's beautiful. I love that you said that. It's so important. Yeah. And I think setting that environment and like, right, like you said, it's simple, but it adds that little excitement to the environment. Like you said, like the candles and the light. I think that's a great example of just like keeping it fun. And I think too, like the time of day, like maybe you usually do it at night, right? Maybe in the middle of the day if you can get away with that. Like obviously some people might have small kids, but they'll figure it out, you know? Like, oh, mommy has to go to the shower really quick. All right, well, husband, come on, let's go. Like, just making little tiny, like you said, it might not always be spontaneous, it might not always be that way, but even doing it in different times of the day that you normally do, I think can be such a great way to keep it interesting, keep it spicy, and obviously in different parts of the house too. That can always be a fun one too, you know?
What again, like you said, keeping it fun, but I really believe, and I guess each couple is different. I'm speaking on my experience. Creating that type of intimacy and being physical with each other, it really creates a bond. And I experienced
Yes.
the times where, we were distant or busy, or I was like, I'm done with you,
Yeah.
and you don't have that intimate connection. It really does disconnect you from your partner.
Yeah. I totally agree.
You know, it's not healthy for either person.
Right, right. Yeah, and if you are going through, a time where you might not have sex very often, I think talking about it, like don't keep it quiet because then I think it might even that might not be a good thing. I think if you talk about it, you say, "Hey, you know what? My libido is just not I'm not feeling it lately. I don't know, there's something going on." Or maybe it's you don't even there's not even a reason. There doesn't have to be a reason. But I
Oh,
think just talking about it and being open about it, the more you talk about sex with your partner, the more it will feel comfortable, especially after a long time. But even if it's a new partner, like just communicating that, because then I think that gives your partner like, oh, okay, she's still into me. She just, having a moment. Maybe there's a lot of things going on at work that she's really stressed out about, or maybe whatever. But I think just expressing that can be so helpful because right because that's emotional intimacy, you guys are talking about it, you're having that connection,
exactly.
and I think just being honest with each other and transparent is
Sure.
so important.
Sure. And there are going to be times in life where, like I had a thyroidectomy, and, I had a
Yeah.
health surgery, and there was times where, this poor guy had gout and he couldn't, walk, or there was a time where we had one of our, businesses caught on fire, and, that we were dealing with that with for a few months. So there are going to be periods in time where that might not be a priority. Um,
Mm,
Wise if you make the space for it and make it a priority even through the storms, like if you physically are capable, because there's going to
yeah.
be we're going through different things physically. You may not be capable. You'd be surprised on how much better you'll feel.
Yeah, I like that. Now, is there something specific that you're wanting to still explore or experience in your marriage together? It could be anything.
It's a great question. um I'm really looking forward to exploring being grandparents. We're not,
Oh.
like I said, my son just recently got married, so it's
Uh-huh.
not a baby on the way. But that conversation came up today, and that'll be interesting to see how we navigate that.
Yeah, I think that'll be a very exciting part of, your next chapter in life, like my parents absolutely love being grandparents to my brother's kids. I mean, literally it's my mom's entire life now. And she's retiring this year, so she's just
Oh,
like she is like so excited to be able to just be with the kids more, help me with my business and just enjoy. So it is a really exciting part. And I love that you said that because it's like yeah, it's like a new experience and like it'll be
nice.
really cool to see your son as a parent whenever that time comes and yeah, for like you and your husband to like have a connection to that child and yeah, I think that'll be really really cool.
I don't think I'm gonna be that grandmother because I still love my work and business and
Yeah,
traveling. So I may not be that one that's gonna be like, hey, I'm here 24/7.
right.
Because I still have things in life that I want to experience, and
That's so true. I love that.
that I want to do. But, when you asked that question, that was the first thing that came up. And also exploring, because I've been doing the work for many years and he just started again doing the work 2.5 years ago. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see how our relationship, evolves as we both get deeper in the work.
Yeah, I love that. Now, does he enjoy talking? Like, is he an emotional person? Does he like talking about his feelings and stuff with you
Sometimes.
sometimes?
Sometimes. But again, he is also, a man, and typically they're not going to be, into their feelings all the time. But I
Mm,
would say he's definitely more open now. And when we have those conversations, like you talked about earlier, communicating, I definitely feel closer and connected. So I feel like sex doesn't always mean intimacy either. Sex can
exactly.
be very transactional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And that doesn't mean connection and intimacy. It's just a physical act.
totally. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good point. Yeah, it can just be a very deep conversation. You're looking at each other. Maybe you're holding hands. Like it can be and it doesn't even have to be touching. Like you said, it can just be completely a really
Totally.
deep conversation.
Totally. It could be, very sexy and erotic without even being in the physical act.
Right, right. Yeah, that's deep. That's some deep intimacy and like not a sexual way, which I think can be
Like,
really,
that's
really
super sexy,
intense.
though. That's like,
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I love that.
I think
Um,
the sexual times I've had when it wasn't even, you're not even naked.
right. Yeah, that's deep. That's important. And I think it's important to keep that alive and continuously like be each other's everything, right? And like that person that you can lean on, but you can also have those really, really intimate, intense moments together. I think that's so important.
It is. Although I don't believe that one person can be our everything, really.
That's a
That's
good point.
like way too much pressure on one person. So I've because I feel like society, like, okay, our Prince Charming, our Cinderella, they have to be everything to us, and that's
Yeah.
not realistic.
I
It really
actually agree with you. Yeah. As I was saying that, I was like, I wish that I could reject, like, not say this because I've heard of some of my friends and other people on podcasts say that their partner is not their best friend. And I was like, that's interesting.
yeah, I could see
You
that.
know, I was like, oh,
I could see
that's
that.
that's an interesting thought. Like, and I don't really know the meaning behind it, but I think it's like they want to have their best friend be another female that they can do kind of all the things with, but their partner is that person who like is reliable and the person that's at home with them that they can be intimate with, that they can do this and that. But then they want it to be like separate for like, the girly things or whatever. So I think it kind of makes sense. It's an interesting thought for sure.
And here's the beauty of, you know, living in the United States of America. We get to choose what works for us.
Yeah.
We really do. And if, again, not saying, like if a traditional situation, doesn't work, that's okay. Because like you said, the spouse doesn't have to be everything. If you have your girlfriends to go do these things with,
Mm,
great. And
yeah.
I think we also need to just be open-minded to, okay, like I feel like sometimes we're unrealistic when I have been with friends who are looking for partners. It's like they have this long list. I'm like, well, good luck.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that no one is ever going to be perfect. They're
Oh,
not always going to do or say things that you like or you want, right? They're going to say things that you're like, why the hell did he just say that? Or why did he just do that? But I find that, I mean, I'm living this every day. Like, there's certain things about my partner. I'm like, why the hell do you think that or do that or whatever? And I'm just like, Janae, let it go. He's his own person. And
yes.
sometimes I need to tell myself that.
Right. Some person. And the other thing I've also learned is, judging other couples or when
Oh,
we
that's a good one.
judge, it's like or like someone will say, well, why are they like that? I'm like, what does it matter to you? If it works
Mm,
for them, then how is it any of your business? That's their
yeah.
journey and they will figure it out.
I love that. That's a good one. God, I could have a whole episode on that. Judging people judging other couples.
Right.
Wow. That's a good one. Yeah, because I think that we do that often, just as society.
The
And it's
judgment.
like, yeah, the judgment of, yeah, I like that. Just what is it to you? Like, why do you care what they're doing? It's a good one.
I've when I was going through it with Mike, I read Eckhart Tolle, and he said, and this made me feel so much better because I was really going through it. He said the most dysfunctional relationship is the romantic relationship because it triggers all of our baggage.
Right. Oh, wow. That's a good one. Yeah, that is so true. So if you could share with your, younger self, like year one of marriage, what would you tell yourself?
Year one of marriage, I would tell myself, take care of you and chase no one.
Ooh,
And it's funny because my
I like it.
mom, I'm giving too much information today. My
I love
mom
it.
said, you want to marry someone who loves you more than you love them, because if not, you'll be chasing them your whole life. I don't know if I believe that 100%.
Huh.
Um, because, Mike definitely has been amazing and he adores me. Yet I felt like I had to chase him.
Mm,
He was unavailable. And so that's what I would, tell anyone who's listening. If you are in a situation and you feel like, or if you're dating and you feel like you have to chase the person for them to respond back to you, if they're not getting back to you, they're not interested.
yes.
Move
Preach
on.
it. Preach it. Yep. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it
Because
should be
a man,
natural,
woman who's interested, they're going to holler, they're going to get back to you immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So save
Yes.
time. So that's what I would say.
I love that. Beautifully said. Any last thoughts before we get into our game?
No, this has been so fun. It's very different than the podcast I'm usually doing.
Yay.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for me.
And thank you for sharing all like your entire story because it's very powerful. And I think that this episode is really gonna make people think, but also like understand that, like you said at the beginning, like it's not always gonna be peaches and roses. There's gonna be hard shit, but you guys clearly stuck together and you worked through everything and you came out on the other side and you're probably so strong, like a strong, solid couple, but it's not always going to be easy, like you said. And I
And,
love that.
and it wasn't easy. We almost didn't make it, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, and those I don't know anyone who's been together almost 30 years that's like you said, is peaches and cream. It's not.
Right. 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 100%. Okay. Are you ready for the game?
I think so.
It's fun. It's fun and nice and easy. So, this is called this or that. So, whichever one you prefer or like better or whatever. So, the first one is, are you an early riser or night owl?
Early riser.
Early riser. Do you prefer to dine in or do takeout?
Dine in, or what does that mean? Like dine
Like,
in means stay home?
no, so dine in meaning like you go out to the restaurant or like you get takeout for back home.
Dine in.
Dine in, love it. Would you prefer, I know you said you want to do a lot of traveling. Do you prefer like a beach vacation or going to the mountains?
I love both. That's a hard one for us because we love both
Yeah,
the and the mountains. So the beach, if I had a choice.
yep, that's fair. Okay, if you had to choose between doing the either thing for the rest of your life, online shopping or in-person shopping.
I'm gonna have to say in person.
My girl.
Yeah, because I've had enough of, I'm so grateful to be here with you online, but anything that I can do in person, I do it.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. And just feeling like the fabrics of things, trying it on if you want to without having to like go somewhere and return it. It's less of a hassle, I find, and it
I
can
mean,
be very fun, you
we have
know.
choice. Both is good, but if I had
Right.
said, hey, I'd love to go inside in real life.
Yes, love that. Lipstick or lip gloss?
Lipstick.
Lipstick, love. Would you rather give up all technology or give up TV, movies, and books?
I don't care about TV and movies, but books.
Mm,
That's like my jam.
yes.
Well, I'd give up the TV, movies, and books because on my technology, I have the books.
That's true. You could do some ebooks or audiobooks. Ah, that's a good a little caveat. I like that. Would you rather own your private jet or own a yacht?
I would, oh gosh,
Yeah,
because I love being on the ocean on a yacht. That's like, uh, I'll take the private jet.
okay. Love it.
Yes.
Would you rather be a kid forever or be adult forever?
Oh, I love where I'm at today. So I'll be an adult.
Adult forever. Love it.
Yeah.
Would you rather create a new holiday or create a new language?
The first thing that came into my mind said language.
Mm,
Language.
wouldn't that be cool? Um, personal chef or personal housekeeper?
Can I have both?
You're like, please, I would like to have both. Ah,
Oh gosh. Okay, I'll have to say personal housekeeper.
housekeeper, love it. Do you prefer a city or small town?
These are hard questions because I love both. Like tonight, I'm going into San Francisco and
Love
get my fill, and then I get to come back to my, suburban town, city,
city. Movie night at home or movie night in the theater?
movie night at home.
Love it. And the
Mhm.
last one is sunrise or sunset.
We love watching the sunset.
Beautiful.
Some of
I
the
love
most
it.
sunsets have been, yeah.
Love it. Yeah, sunsets are beautiful. Well, this was incredible. Please let everyone know where they can connect with you, find you, find everything you got going on.
Oh, this was so fun. Thank you so much for having me. And you can just find me, Grace Redmond, on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can go to my website, www.graceredmond.com. I'm excited because right now we're definitely opening up coaching spots in my calendar. So definitely, keep us in mind. If you are ready to soar to that next level, we'll definitely be there to help you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. It was so powerful.
Thank you so much, Janae. It was super fun joining you. Thank you for having me.